Hey everyone, I'm Bobby Sylvester of the FantasyPros Baseball Podcast. As always, you can find all our brand new content at youtube.com/fantasypros. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Guys, today I've got my top 10 busts of the 2020 fantasy baseball season. Let's start up at the top. We're at number 10, I've got relief pitcher of the Boston Red Sox, Brandon Workman. There's no denying that Workman was one of the best relievers in baseball last year, but his home run to fly ball ratio was unsustainably low, and he suffers from major command issues. Yes, he has the job going into the season, but if he slips up at all, Matt Barnes, who's a similar pitcher, is waiting right in the wings. Let's go to catcher for number 9, where I've got Will Smith of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last year's rookie for the Dodgers had a phenomenal career, but it was just in 170 at-bats, so it's a small sample size, hard to predict that that's going to be sustainable over a full season. Instead, let's look back at his minor league numbers, where he's just a .243 career minor league hitter with 55 home runs in 4 years. That's not great. At number 8, we've got another hitter. This time, it's the third baseman of the Chicago Cubs, Kris Bryant. No one's going to deny that Kris Bryant's a great real-life player, but seeing as though his best tool is his batting eye, that doesn't quite translate over to fantasy baseball. In fact, over the last 2 years, Eduardo Escobar finished ahead of him from a fantasy perspective, but he's going 6 rounds later than Bryant. Let's go to the shortstop of the Chicago White Sox for number 7, where I've got Tim Anderson. In 2017, Tim Anderson batted .257. Then in 2018, it dropped to .240. And last year, all of a sudden, he batted .335. The difference, of course, was that his BABIP was 100 points higher. More than likely, he's going to end up south of .270 again, and while he's still a source of both power and speed, it isn't quite enough to warrant such a high ADP. At number 6, we've got an outfielder. It's Aristides Aquino of the Cincinnati Reds. Much like Will Smith above, Aquino had a marvelous debut, smashing 19 homers in 205 at-bats, but guys, he struck out 60 times in that period. If you look back at his minor league numbers, this is a career minor league .248 hitter with a 26% K rate. That's not likely to translate well to a full season in the big leagues, and the thing is, I'm not even sure he has a roster spot on opening day. Back to starting pitcher at number 5, where I've got David Price, who's now with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Price has had quite the career, but just looking at the last 3 seasons, he averages just 119 innings per year, all while sporting mediocre ratios. More importantly, his velocity plummeted to close the 2019 season. Yeah, he has some upside for sure, but not quite as much as some of the younger pitchers who are being drafted behind him. I've got another starting pitcher at number 4, this time it's Jack Flaherty of the St. Louis Cardinals. Last year when Blake Snell took a huge step back, there were some major red flags, and guess what? Flaherty has some of the same ones, as he finished top 3 in BABIP and top 3 in left on base rate. Yeah, he's definitely a true ace, but I can't recommend drafting him in the 4th or even 3rd round, considering some of those regression signs. At number 3, I've got shortstop of the Toronto Blue Jays, it's Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette's a big prospect for a reason, but that doesn't mean he's quite the polished bat that everyone thinks he is. Let's look back at his minor league numbers, where in 2018 and 2019, his OPS was below 800. Yeah, he's got some power and he's got some speed, but I don't think you can warrant drafting him as high as his ADP is, considering the risk. At number 2, it's the last starting pitcher on the list. It's Brandon Woodruff of the Milwaukee Brewers. Woodruff was great last year, but in just 121 innings. And if MLB does play a full season, it's hard to see the Brewers jumping him all the way up to 180 innings, which is almost what's required at his ADP. And Yasmani Grandal left town too, which is the worst part, because he's the best pitch framer in all of baseball. So it's hard to see his ERA, mediocre at 3.62, staying in place as well. And at number 1, we go back to sophomore shortstops, where I've got Fernando Tatis of the San Diego Padres. Like Bo Bichette, Fernando Tatis is an elite prospect with just bonkers upside, but there's a lot of risk in drafting him in the 2nd round, considering his BABIP was .415, the highest in all of baseball. His home run to fly ball ratio was also unsustainable as well, and guess what? He's coming off a surgery as well. I wouldn't risk drafting him in the 2nd round. Alright guys, that's all for my top 10 busts of the 2020 fantasy baseball season. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for future content. Check out all our brand new content at youtube.com/fantasypros. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your baseball.